Howdy guys, girls and furry friends. This week I'm going to show you how the process of making a single page spread works. If you're in the infancy of illustrating children's picture books, then welcome! It's what I do, it's what I love, and it's what this channel is all about. If you like this video, I'd really appreciate a like, share or comment if you have the time and the inclination. Right, this is what the text is for the page. At last, the night was over and little Hare stretched and yawned, ready for breakfast. Picture books are for 3 to 6 year olds, and the design for this book is illustration on the left page and text on the right. That means I don't need to leave any space for text in the illustration itself. There's our starting point. We know what the text is going to be. Next, we need to measure up the page size. First job is to work out the page size. So I've been given the finished size of 210 millimeters top to bottom and 145 millimeters side to side. So we need to add 3 millimeters for the top and 3 at the bottom, so that's 6 in total. So now we're on 216, and the same at the sides as well, another 6, because it's a single page. Add 6 to that, so that makes it times 151 millimeters. This is my rough sketch idea of a lovely sunrise, and the bunny is going to be backlit because there's the sun. So I think that makes quite a good little design. Now I've got to transfer onto my paper. I need to transfer the size and the ratio. I'm going to do it at 100%. So let's make a start. So that is our trim size plus the 3 millimeters bleed all the way around the outside. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to show myself where the trim line is going to be. So that's 3 millimeters in, 3 millimeters in there, and then at the same at the top and the bottom and the sides. And then what I need to do is mark 3 millimeters in, so actually 6 millimeters in from the edge to show where my safe zone is. And I've got a video about safe zones if you want to see that. So we're going to go in just a little bit further, make sure nothing beyond here is really valuable in terms of illustration. And now I'm going to trace this image through onto a piece of layout paper and transfer it over to my Lightbox. And now, because I can see through my Lightbox, which is underneath, I've got my drawing, which I've just drawn through onto the layout paper, very thin paper that's transparent. And then I've got my watercolour paper on the top. I'm just going to make sure that's in the right place. So now, because I've not had to rub anything else, I can just get cracking on with this. So I've got one of my paintbrushes. I like these tapered ones better than the round ones. And my paint's out, and I've wetted all of the paints with my spray. I'm going to do this tackle the sky first. So because there is the sun here, I'm just going to put some water where I'm going to do a sort of negative space of the sun, so all of the sky minus the sun in water. And to make sure that I can see it properly, sometimes I'm going to have to dip my head so I'm looking at it obliquely, kind of side on, and that way I can see where the water is from the shine on the paper. And into that I'm going to drop a bit of pink for the early morning. This is rose, and a bit of yellow further up, and these are going to merge themselves together, and then beyond that it's going to be blue. I don't want it to be too dark, certainly not too close to the bottom. I'm just dropping more water onto it now, just to help it to blend nicely. And a bit more pigment. Clean my brush really well, and then I'm just going to go around that negative space of the sun. And then up the top, I think I might just drop a little bit of darker blue in. So this is that sort of midnighty indigo. And I've realised up here, it's a classic Illustrator mistake, I haven't carried that line on up there. So I'm going to leave this area of the sky for now. I'm just going to draw that line in and let it dry properly, and then I can put that bit of sky in. But I can do the other side. And the narrative here between the birds is there's an owl trying to go to sleep because he's he's been up all night, and then there's some sparrows waking up because they've been asleep all night, so they're kind of neighbours that are slightly at odds with one another. Let's look back at the sun again. I might just add a little bit more yellow in here to help with that, showing where that negative space is. You're going to hear a lot of funny noises, and none of them from me this morning, because there's a lot of traffic, a lot of lorries and stuff going up and down the road today. Normally it's not like this, it's just there's been an event, so they're tidying up after it. There we go, lots of water to let it soak in and do its own thing. I haven't quite decided yet whether I'm going to colour the sun in or not yet. I'm going to leave that judgment till a bit later. Whilst that's drying, I'm going to move on to this bit of grass down here. So it's going to be quite dark because we're just in that sort of dawn period. I'm just going to mix a little bit of a green that I previously had with a bit of the blue from the sky, just to give it a tone. I'm taking it right across all that foliage because that's going to be more brightly coloured. And then I can move on to the owl up the top here, because he's not, whilst I'm waiting for everything else to dry, he's not currently next to anything else that's wet. And I think I'm going to make him a barn owl, so that means the top of his head's going to be a sort of pale browny colour, and the rest of his face is going to be white, but he's going to have slightly browny wings as well, which are just poking through at the sides there. Now let's have a look, is that, dare I try this bit of sky now. I think it was probably going to be dry, so let's give it a go. Again, I'm going to go over those musical notes because they're going to probably be black, I think. This is how to get rid of those pesky little mistakes that I make. So can you see here that little bit of sky? So I've got a clean brush with clean water on it. I'm just going to wet that again. You can even do this when it's completely thoroughly dry after a day or so. Just go back in with your clean water and then dab it with a piece of kitchen paper. And I'm going to do the same with the owl. Just here because I don't want that on the cloud. I think this will be the last bit that I'm going to do with just watercolour. Now I've built up my tones and my base, I shall probably get the pencils out and start giving it some detail. Just a quick note on the clouds, because the sun is coming from, the light is coming from underneath, the shadow is going to be at the top of the clouds, rather than if you were painting it was a sunny day and the sun was above, then the dark bit would be at the bottom. And because it's sunrise, I'm going to give it a little bit of those colours that we see, the pinks and the yellows that we see as well. It all helps to tell the story of what time of day it is. So for morning, there's a lot of those cooler colours, and then in the evening you get the warmer tones in white cloud. These are Derwent Inktense pencils. They're really nice watercolour pencils. They're not cheap, but they're well worth it. If you can want to splash out on some watercolour pencils, then I think these are probably the best. So that colour at the moment looks quite sort of like a dark gold. Let's see what happens when we add some water to it. This colour is called mustard. So I'm just keeping my strokes with the brush really light, and I'm not covering the whole area, but I am keeping a close eye on areas like this. Now this green is still a little damp, so I'm not going to go right to the edge, but I also don't really want that line, that definitive line at the bottom, so I'm just going to work that out. So that was the dark chocolate and the bark. Now for the other tree, because it's a much lighter brown, I'm going to choose some different colours. I think I'm going to choose oak. I'm going to use the baked earth first because that's the lighter colour. Holding the pencil quite far down the end. Just going to do some expressive strokes. Swap. And I'm thinking about where the light's coming from, so over here is going to be darker. And I'm not worrying too much about getting things along the edge here because that's all going to be cut off. Just a little bit more of that baked earth. Okay, back in with my brush that's just got water on it. Dip the brush in the water again. So every couple of strokes I'm just cleaning the brush off. Okay, I like that. Both those tree trunks have now got some really good texture going on as the watercolour has spread a little bit and dried. So there's an area here that's really quite dry, and you can see the pencil marks, and also here. So I'm going to give the rest of the areas that kind of treatment. I'm just going to try and tackle this area, which I've seen as becoming a little problematic. So I'm just going to put some more water into it. Just blend that edge out a little bit, because I love that texture, but sometimes it can be a little bit too fierce. So I'm just going to blend that out ever so slightly. Just makes it a little bit more manageable on the eye. Don't want it too distracting. Now to these little birdie guys. This is amber, which I haven't used anywhere else yet, so I'm going to use it as a sort of base colour for the nest. And then build up the colours a bit. Now I've got madder brown, and I'm just going to use that in the darker, the areas where it's going to be darker. So the light's going to be hitting it from this side, and it's going to be in these crevices, particularly on that left hand side. And then I've got to make a decision as to what colour the birds are going to be. Just going to use a small brush with clean water on it, starting with that amber colour. So just where that amber is, and then clean the brush, and from the other side And you'll see that there are some little white spaces, and the white spaces are really important. You can either manipulate it so that it looks like some sort of reflection or very lit area, or you can just use it as part of texture. Right, whilst this is still wet, I'm going to go back in with my amber. I'm just going to use it the neat pencil, just to bring up that amber colour, and then back in with the brush and just move it around a little. Just activates the colour when you put water on it. So I don't want the birds to stand out too much. I might go for burnt orange. So because the nest is still wet, I'm just going to add a bit of dry colour for the moment. When the nest is dry, I'll go back in with the paintbrush and the water. Burnt orange, and this is sienna for the beaks. Bit of texture for the owl. I still feel the hair needs something extra, so I'm going to put some shadow just to give it some texture, just right down like a stripe down the back, because it's lit from both sides. And then just a tiny bit on the tail to show that we've not forgotten about it, but it is a white tail. I just have a feeling that I need to do something else with the sun here. So this is actually sun yellow. I'm just going to do some lines in the middle, sort of concentric. So it looks like that's actually the rising sun. A bit more colour in the middle. And then this around the edge is more of the glare of the sun, if you like. I want to keep those lines in as much as possible, like that. And then I think because this line round here is formed, I'm actually going to knock that back a little bit with just water. Just re-wetting it, and then with a clean piece of kitchen paper, I'm going to dab. The key thing here is to just make sure you've got a clean brush. The very last thing I think I'm going to do is, I feel this nearest bit of field, I don't know, it just feels like it's lacking something. So I think what I might do is I might use the pencil to just give a little bit more shading over here, and also put a shadow around the hair. Now that the paint has dried on my clouds, I've really not got very much of that colour that I wanted to build up. So I've got the sun yellow and crimson, and I'm just going to just boost that colour a little. And it's good to do this with the pencils because you have more control. You can, the harder you press, the more intensity you get. So it's easier to build up the colours by just pressing really lightly to start with. And I'm using the pencils quite almost side on, so not directly down like that. And I might also use a little bit of blue, bright blue it's called. What is it? Bright blue. Bright blue, because it's a cool time of day, so there's a lot more blue in it than really the reds or the pinks or the oranges. I've been painting for years and years and years, but it doesn't matter how long you paint for, you never quite know how it's going to turn out, so let's hope I haven't just ruined it at the last hurdle. Okay, I'm going to start with the yellow. And then the pink. And then I'm going to work into the blue. And that blue is really quite a bright blue, you'll see. It comes out a lot brighter than you'd imagine when you put the pencil work down. Okay, I'm happy with that. Yellow. The reason I'm starting with the yellow first is because I don't want to merge the blue down into the yellow because we'll end up with green clouds. So I'm going pretty lightly around where the yellow is going to meet. And dry a brush, just move that yellow up into the blue. Okay, cool. Last thing I'm just going to do quickly is with a very clean brush, just go along this bottom edge just to soften that slightly. And apart from flattening it, which I will do in a minute with my technique that was in another video, I think that's it. Do you think that fits the text? Let me know in the comments. In the near future, I'll be showing you how to leave space for text if that text is incorporated into the image. Let me know if there's anything you really want to know about, and I'll add it to my topics for future videos. Right, I'm off to lie on a lion. Wish me luck. I will see you next week with any luck. Nanu nanu.